Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting a minute or so to let more attendees join, and then we'll get started with our presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, I think we can get started. So welcome everyone to Open House, to this portion of Open House. We will be having a presentation on the Faculty of Science by the Dean of Science, Professor Doug Goltz. We will be covering a lot of information and then leave a lot of time for questions at the end. All of your questions can be forwarded into the Q&A portion that you can see on the bottom of your screen, and I'll be monitoring them, and we'll have lots of time, as I said, at the end to answer questions, and we can have a conversation about science and any questions and doubts that you may have. So here you go, Doug.
All right. So is my presentation going to show up, or will I have to have it as a slideshow? Is that okay?
Looks good to me.
Okay, good. All right, so I've got two different views on two different computer screens, so I have to ask. Thanks, Nadia. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Open House 2022. This is at least the second virtual open house that I've been involved with, and it's always been an interesting experience. So happy to have you here. Happy to have everybody attending. Of course, we'd always like to be in person, and as far as I know, our plans for the fall are going to be in person. I think everybody's planning for that, but we'll see. So yes, my name is Doug Goltz. I am currently the acting Dean of Science in the University of Winnipeg. And I've been in this role for a few years now, and I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on what's going on in my faculty and the departments. So happy to do this presentation, and certainly happy to answer questions that people may have. So maybe a little bit about the Faculty of Science, and certainly this will look a lot like a general overview, and as we said earlier, that we're definitely happy to answer questions along the way if possible, but probably best if we have questions at the end, and certainly try to answer everything you may have. So what does the Faculty of Science look like at the University of Winnipeg? Well, honestly, it looks a lot like most faculties of science in most universities. We offer a pretty standard range of courses in the Faculty of Science: chemistry, physics, biology, applied computer science, geography, anthropology, mathematics and statistics, and environmental studies and sciences. So if you look at universities across Canada, you'll see that many of these very same departments appear in the Faculty of Science, with some variation, of course. Most of our departments in the Faculty of Science offer both 3- and 4-year degrees. Certainly, there's advantages to both. Quite often, we see students who are taking 3-year degrees in science using that degree as a stepping stone. So, for example, if you can use that 3-year degree as a stepping stone for another degree. Quite often we see this with students who are planning, for example, a professional program in medicine. For students who want to do graduate school, certainly an honors degree is the way to go. Definitely a lot of graduate schools look for honors degrees. And at the very least, I would say 4-year degrees. And so, of course, most of our students who are serious about majoring in their department, in their program, quite often think about a 4-year degree first. Now, that's not to say that you can't do a 3-year degree and a 4-year degree, that's for sure. We do have students that enter programs thinking of 3-year degrees and then migrating into a 4th-year degree. So, of course, I can list the departments. And we do have BSc degrees, so Bachelor of Science degrees in those departments, but that doesn't tell the whole story. So in some programs like environmental studies, anthropology, and geography, we do offer options for BA as well as BSc. And in some departments like anthropology, biology, chemistry, and biology, we have these programs that are sort of linked up between departments. So for example, biochemistry is a program shared by the biology department and the chemistry department, meaning that there's courses in both departments in order to achieve a biochemistry degree. So we have joint programs in the school, but we also have joint programs outside the university. So we do offer programs like psychiatric nursing, applied environmental sciences with Red River College, and our radiation therapy, which is a partnership we have with Cancer Care Manitoba. Students in that program start out in physics courses here at the University of Winnipeg and complete their training, their hands-on experience at health sciences, where Cancer Care is located. So I just want to give a little bit of a plug to this program. It's kind of a unique program here in Manitoba. It's unique in Manitoba. There are radiation therapy programs in other provinces, but our program is unique here in Manitoba. It's a joint program, as I said, with physics and Cancer Care. So students graduate with a 4-year BSc in the physics and a diploma from Cancer Care. It's not a large program, so it's a highly specialized program. And radiation therapy is not, it's not X-ray technician. Radiation therapy is radiation therapy you would get, say, for treatment of disease like cancer. So typically 10 or fewer students are accepted into this program each year. And you don't enter this program in your first year at university. You apply to enter it in your second year. Of course, a lot of students that come to the University of Winnipeg in their first year, they may not have plans to be anthropology majors or physics majors for that matter. Quite often, students are coming to the university or come to university with professional schools in mind. So we do have programs that cater to those students, and we have a number of them. And basically, our pre-professional programming is really meant to help students and guide them to make sure that they take courses that are well suited for a second degree, let's say in medicine or dentistry or veterinary medicine. So why would you come to the University of Winnipeg? Well, actually, I put a little bit of thought into this today, and I was trying to think, well, if I was a student, what are things I would think about? What are things that make us, a really good place to be, a good place to study? And so, of course, the first thing that must come to mind has to be teaching. It has to be learning in the classroom. And so for me, what's really important is our teachers, is our course instructors, and And how do we achieve this outstanding success? Well, we also achieve it because our classroom sizes are smaller than some of your larger schools, that's for sure. So a smaller class size has a huge advantage. It gives you the opportunity to actually meet and talk with your professors and get to know them a little bit. And more importantly, they get to know you. So what does the classroom look like at the University of Winnipeg? Well, first year, typically 60. It can be 60, can be 80, and rarely more than 125. Now, we do have some first year classes that are even larger than 125, but I would say that's not your typical first year class. By second year, professors get to know their students. Your second year classroom can be 30 to 40 to 45. And certainly by fourth year, classes can be as small as 8 or 10, and unusual if a class is over 30 for fourth year. Our undergraduate teaching labs, I would say here in the Richardson building, our first year chemistry, well, I would say all of our chemistry, all of our biology labs typically have a size no more than 24. A lab section with 24 undergraduate students would typically have one lab instructor and at least one lab demonstrator. What does outstanding teaching look like here at the university? Well, we have award-winning faculty for sure. In 2021, Hannah Stockey won the 3M National Teaching Fellowship. This is a national award. And of course, we have people like Ian Burley in the physics department who won the Clifford J. Robson Memorial Award for Teaching Excellence. Just a couple of examples. So these are people that are passionate about what they do in the classroom and in the teaching lab. So why study science at the University of Winnipeg? Well, teaching, number one, but we also have outstanding people. We have faculty and staff and students who really care about their community. This is a good place to be. People like Dr. Richard Westwood in Environmental Studies and Sciences was awarded the Clarence Atchison Award for his public awareness in trees in urban forests and in urban environments. He's a passionate person about the community and about the environment. Students love working with him. By training, he's an entomologist, but he's a really interesting guy. And he's got his finger on the button when it comes to the environment. Students really like working with him. He offers really interesting courses and brings students out into the field with him. Ms. Valerie McKinley, and I put here in brackets in anthropology. She's a wonderful person because she does have a tie to the anthropology department, and in particular, as a technician in the anthropology labs. She's done a lot of volunteer work and a lot of work and service to students, the city, and Indigenous communities. So it's a pleasure working with her. I've had the opportunity of working with her myself in the anthropology department, where we were looking at Egyptian pottery. So really interesting person with a wide range of interests. Well, those are the outstanding faculty. We also have some pretty amazing students. Of course, you can't list all of these people, so I can only list a few, because what they do is they provide examples of what we do here at the University of Winnipeg. Evan Loeb in Biochem and Melissa Anderson in Physics launched the Canadian chapter of the American Indigenous Science and Engineering Society. So this is a student group, and they promote a lot of really interesting ideas for Indigenous students, promoting science and giving opportunities for networking and for students to get together and realize that they're not alone. So they started this chapter, and amazingly, in 2020, they were awarded the Chapter of the Year. So well done to those guys. Well, I'm not finished. That's teaching, that's people. Why else would I want to study science at the University of Winnipeg? Well, research opportunities. We have great people in the classroom, but we also have great people in the labs. And again, this is because you can actually meet and talk to your professors. They can get to know you and you can get to know them. Professors in almost every department, I would say in every department, provide research opportunities to our students. So here I've just taken pictures, probably pictures from the University of Winnipeg web site actually, but I'm looking at pictures of Renee DeVille's group there, Discover, studying retroviruses. Doug Craig's group at the top there. So Doug Craig is the one with gray hair. He studies proteins, protein shape, protein mobility, and that sort of thing, protein chemistry. We have students in the field. I want to say those are either geography or environmental studies. And of course, Tabitha Wood's research group is in the NMR room down in the bottom right. They all seem happy to me. So there are research opportunities that involve students, and we have world-class research facilities and teaching laboratories in the Richardson College for the Environment here at the University of Winnipeg. So the Richardson building, or the Richardson College for the Environment and Science Complex, it's that building on Portage Avenue. It's got symbols, elemental symbols from the periodic table. World-class facility. To me, it's a great place to come to work every day, and it's a great place to learn. We have wonderful research, nuclear magnetic resonance labs, instrumental labs, and computer labs. So I thought I would just throw up a couple of pictures. So these are pictures of I would say the biology teaching, first year teaching lab. Could be chemistry though. But these are probably one of each. This would be your typical teaching lab here in the Richardson building with outstanding facilities, ventilation equipment, ventilated cabinets, whiteboards for teaching. But we also have some great research lab space as well that both graduate and undergraduate students tap into every day, even now. And I use this as a bit of a joke. So I like to show a picture of what a research space looks like before we move in, before we've messed it up and actually started using it. And so that's my graduate student there on the bottom right, Shukafe. So that's in Dr. Craig's protein lab space. So you can see very quickly, we turned a pristine lab area into a well-used space. Okay, so I want to promote how nice our space is, but I have to warn you, once people start getting to work, the space no longer looks pristine like it did when we first moved in. Of course, there's plenty of opportunities for undergraduate students here at the University of Winnipeg. I would say every department in the Faculty of Science has a club or an association or a group that meets. We also have the Students of Science Association. So that's a university student club. Again, it's a science club and supported by the University of Winnipeg Students Association. Students in many science departments participate in undergraduate student conferences. So these are conferences that are not necessarily in Manitoba. Students go to the Western Canada Undergraduate Conference in Chemistry. They'll go as far as Victoria. Every year, the biology department supports students to travel to the Western Canada Biology Association conference. We have an excellent math and science tutoring center. So that's actually a really great opportunity for students who are finding challenges in their courses, but it's also an opportunity for our senior students to mentor junior students. So it's a really great facility. Probably dominated by students in chemistry, math, and statistics, but not exclusively. Of course, we have the what I call cases. I already mentioned them. Evan Loeb and Melissa started this. This is the American Indigenous Science and Engineering Society. Students participate every year in field courses and field schools, which are very similar, as well as just free research opportunities. But here I'm just highlighting some field schools that I'm familiar with. So we have the Environmental Studies Field Camp, the Forest Ecosystems Field Course. So that's that Ecosystems Field Course. We also have a Forestry Field Course. that takes place up at the PA in partnership with with UCN. But we've also hosted it down here in Sandylands Provincial Park. The geography department every second year has the Churchill Field School. Of course, now we've interrupted that for the last couple of years because of the pandemic. So we'll be looking forward to that field school opening up again. And in 2019, just before shutdown, the year before shutdown, geography also hosted another field course in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Might look like they're on a tobacco farm in southern Ontario, but no, they actually were in Puerto Vallarta. This was a really interesting field school for geography majors. They looked at both human and physical geography in the area. So they were looking at both the physical environment, but also human aspects, such as urban design and that sort of thing. So very cool. So as I've said, there are undergraduate research opportunities. Senior undergraduate students are highly engaged in research activities at the University of Winnipeg. Professors do often hire undergraduate students as research assistants. Science departments also hire a lot of students who work as markers, and in some cases for senior undergraduate students, lab demonstrators. For students that are lucky enough to work with professors in the lab, it's not unusual to see undergraduate students who are included as co-authors in peer-reviewed publications in scientific journals. So that's sort of high-level observations that I've made about the university. I'm in the chemistry department at the University of Winnipeg, and so I can speak also about my students and where they've ended up. No, maybe I can't. There we go. So I actually skipped ahead one slide by accident. So some students do ask me at open house and different events, they often ask me, where do students go after they finish their degree, or where do most of our students end up? And there isn't really a good answer for that. So, but where do a lot of students go? Certainly can't be all of them, but where do a lot of them go? Well, a lot of them do end up in graduate school. So a graduate degree would be a second degree that students take after completing their BSc. So a graduate degree typically would be either a master's or a PhD. And students that go down that path, I often think are well suited for academic career paths. Of course, a lot of students who enter the Faculty of Science in first year are thinking of professional schools. They're thinking of medicine. They're thinking of dentistry, veterinary college, optometry. Those are challenging programs to get into. And it's also critically important to have a solid foundation at your undergraduate level to get into those schools and to succeed in those schools. And of course, employment. So it's hard to say. I guess different departments have more employment opportunities than others. And it's no surprise right now, applied computer science, I think, a very popular major, and students in that program typically do not have trouble finding employment after they graduate. So that's sort of where do students in the Faculty of Science end up. I'm a chemistry professor, and I've also had the opportunity to supervise many students over the years. And so I actually thought about this a little bit today. So where have my own students ended up? So where did my chem majors end up? Well, they ended up as chemistry instructors in numerous schools. They've ended up working for the Manitoba government in industrial hygiene. I did have one student go to law school, which kind of surprised me. She was a chemistry major, but also became interested in human rights. And so kind of ended up taking sort of a double major and then went on to law school. So I had the privilege of writing the reference letter for her. Of course, I've had multiple students who've ended up in professional school, that's for sure. including pharmacy, dentistry, medicine, veterinary school. Graduate schools, I would say University of Manitoba, of course, and the University of Alberta are very popular choices for graduate school in chemistry. And that could be completely different for students who are taking biology. My students have also ended up in engineering programs after they graduated. Again, as long as they've met the physics and mathematics requirements, the chem major is well suited for a degree in engineering. And of course, I have students, more than one student who worked in my lab who ultimately ended up working for the city of Winnipeg and are still working for the city of Winnipeg in water treatment. So not only wastewater, but drinking water as well. And of course, local labs. We do have local labs who do routine analysis, certified labs like ALS Labs, Maxim, Polycast, GenVion, DUHA, Winnipeg Air Testing, and of course, students who end up working in labs at Red River College and the University of Manitoba. Okay, so I hope that gives you a feel for the University of Winnipeg and maybe a little bit of encouragement and things to think about, and maybe things you haven't thought about before you apply to our school. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug. We did have a few questions. I'll put them up now.
Super.
So one student wanted to know, what is the difference between a 4-year degree and a 4-year honors degree?
Well, that's a good question. So in some programs, the 4-year degree and the honors can look very similar in terms of the classes students would take. Now, I can't speak for every department in the university, and really I should be focusing on the Faculty of Science. So in the Faculty of Science, basically what's required to meet the requirements for an honors degree are specific courses for that honors requirement, as well as maintaining a GPA. And I would say typically a B average would be required. So other than that, the 4-year degree and the honors degree can look very similar on paper. I will say this though, some graduate schools, so if a student finishes their BSc and is thinking about doing an MSc or a PhD afterwards, some schools really look for an honors degree. Another area that an honors degree can differ from a 4-year degree is in the 4th year. Most departments, not all, but most departments have a 4th year research project or a 4th year thesis style project. And that course would be required for an honors degree as well. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
They'll ask if there's a follow-up.
Sure.
Someone has asked, what courses should a student start with if she wants to get into genetics?
So genetics would be in the biology department. And I would say genetics is a hot area to be in right now. And it has been for some time. So of course, genetics plays an important role in medical and human health. But not limited to that. Genetics shows up in all kinds of places, animal ecology and plant ecology as well. So yeah, I would say the best, if somebody is looking for a career in genetics, you are probably either looking at biology or biochemistry. And if I say biochemistry, I mean with a very heavy emphasis on biology courses for sure. So we do offer courses at the undergraduate level in genetics. And they're very popular courses. So they do fill up and they have a lab component to them. So yeah, they're very popular. Our biology majors take those courses and our biochem majors take those courses.
we have a question on, there was one that you did address, asking about job opportunities at the university, but we also have someone who's asking specifically about job opportunities in physics, which I know can change per term, per year,
Oh,
but
sure.
do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no. One thing I'll say about the physics department, they are a very active department as experimental scientists. So there's a number of them. There's Melanie Martin, Blair Jameson, Jeff Martin, Chris Bidanosti. So those are all really good people. They hire students every year to work in their research programs. And I would say this about students who want to work in a research lab. I would say be patient. So if you're coming into a lab after first year, professors may not be as interested in hiring you as if, let's say, as much as, say, a third year student. So a third year student has more experience and has learned a lot more, say, a lot more physics or chemistry. So those opportunities are really good for our senior students. And physics does have them for sure, like all of our science departments.
Wonderful. There's a question here, is navigating classes hard in the university, like where to go? I'll put it up here.
That's a surprisingly good question, Nadia.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. There's one thing after I answer my bit, I'll add it in the chat so that everyone can see. A really great resource that I think all students should access are the fact sheets. So they'll have a description of every single major that we offer at the university. If they offer a 3-year, a 4-year, or an honors degree, what a sample first year looks like. So that's your best opportunity to look and see, okay, if I like biochemistry, what types of classes would I be taking in my first year, or could I take in my first year? Same with physics, everything's listed there.
nice.
So that's a great resource for students to access. And that may answer some of the questions that we have coming in here. But no, yes and no, I guess. It can be challenging navigating, but we do have a whole team of people who are here to assist you with this. I work in the recruitment department, so before students apply, we really help them out with this information. Once students are accepted, they'll get in touch with academic advisors and they help you plan out all of these details. And then once you're accepted, you have all of your professors to help you navigate this big change that you're making from high school to university.
That's a better answer than I could have given. But
Okay.
no, I think the fact sheets are excellent. They're just a really good, quick look at what you need, and I think they're really, I think they're awesome, actually.
Yeah, I
and I've
agree.
looked at them myself.
Yeah, they're my favorite thing to
Yeah.
give to students. And truthfully, you'll go through a lot of the presentations that we have for open house, and just in general, there's so much information on the website. We know it's confusing. So I personally think, you'll hear a lot of information, you'll forget a lot of information,
Yeah.
but the best place to really see it all is in the fact sheet. So I'll add that into the chat right away. But
Perfect.
let's get to a next question here.
Yeah, I like your answer better than mine. Whatever one I would have come up with, that's a better one.
Okay, so does the Faculty of Science have a specific scholarship attached for students enrolling?
That's kind of a tough question to answer. So we do have entrance scholarships that I'm aware of for students coming in from high school, let's say. And I will say there are scholarships available, maybe not as well known. There are scholarships and awards available in individuals' departments. So some departments have sources of money and do offer students awards. And one department I'm thinking of that's really active in that area is chemistry, actually. They have a surprising number of departmental awards, and we have a surprising number of university awards. In some cases, students have to apply for those awards and apply for those scholarships, and in some cases not. And so I guess the best place to start people off, and please jump in, Nadia, but I would say go to the awards page on the university website and definitely have a look around, because it's surprising just how many there are. I'm always surprised at how many and how broad the spectrum is. Students might, or I think they would be surprised at how many they probably could qualify for.
Yes, I agree. That was, yeah, those are very cohesive answer. There are entrance scholarships that students are eligible for as they apply. And then there are specific ones for different majors. And these are less automatic in a sense. We will be hosting a presentation for open house with details on how to apply to the university and how to apply for scholarships and just a general overview of those scholarships. That will be February 24th, so on Thursday at 6 p.m. I will be doing that presentation along with someone from Awards. So if you'd like to
Nice.
come back for that one, we'll have tons of information. And if not, then right on the website, everything is listed there as well.
I shouldn't even be jumping into those answers. I should be letting you take them.
No, it's a good team we have
You
here.
are the expert.
No, I don't know about that. Okay, so someone is asking, is four-year honors necessary if you want to go into medicine?
That's a really good question, actually, and it's a really tricky question to answer because there is no single answer for a career path toward medicine, or an academic career path toward medicine. I would recommend for all students, if they are thinking of medicine or any professional program, dentistry, optometry, veterinary school, I always recommend students seriously think about taking a degree path. So my recommendation would be to think about chemistry, biochemistry, biology, but it's not unreasonable to think about neuroscience or kinesiology, athletic therapy, physics. There are many ways to get to a professional program, including medicine. I can't remember specifically if the University of Manitoba requires a degree to get into medicine. Previously, they required specific courses, and not that long ago required specific courses to get into medicine. I will say this, though, about trying to get into medicine. If students are applying to that program, it's extremely competitive. I actually don't know anybody in 20 years who's gotten into medicine without a degree. So even when the U of M website or calendar says you don't need a degree, I don't know anybody who doesn't have a degree that got into medicine. So they all have a degree. Do they need a 4-year degree or an honors degree? My short answer would be no. I would say no. Is there an advantage to getting in with a 3-year degree? Well, time is an advantage. But again, professional programs, professional schools like medicine, like dentistry, they aren't just looking at a GPA. They're not just looking at students' marks. There's an interview process. There's reference letters. There's the MCAT exam. So they're looking at a lot of things. And what I've observed over the last 20 years is that you don't typically have the 20-year-old or the 21-year-old undergraduate student with a 3-year degree getting into those programs. There's also value on life experience. So what often happens is students with a 3-year degree do apply for those programs, may not get accepted the first time. And then, so what do? You've got your 3-year degree. My advice would be to consider doing the 4-year degree, to take another year, continue your degree path, and reapply. That would be my immediate advice. So is a degree required? It really depends on the medical school. It really depends on the dental school. What you'll see in Manitoba is quite different than what you'll see in Alberta, which will be quite different than Ontario. And even the application process can be different. the requirements to get into the programs can be quite different. Some have a higher emphasis on GPA, some don't. Some place high value on the interview. So it could be quite different. So there's a terrible answer for you. There isn't one answer.
There isn't one answer. And the last question that I just put up there is sort of addressing it as well. The only thing I would add to the whole debate over pre-professional requirements and programs and what you should be doing is that pre-medicine, just like pre-dentistry, if you think of it more like a list of required classes that you need to take, it
Yeah.
will sort of be easier in your mind, I think. So if you think of it, pre-medicine is a series of classes that you need to take. And that series of classes can fit into a variety of degrees. It can fit into a biochemistry degree, a neuroscience degree, and as long as those classes are within that degree, it will be considered pre-medicine or pre-dentistry, pre-chiropractic. So it's just really making sure that the degree that you take has a specific list of classes within it. Hopefully that will help make it easier for students to understand. So pre-medicine can be a lot of things, and you're not bound to one specific degree, or if you're taking pre-medicine, it doesn't mean that you won't be eligible for pre-pharmacy or something like that. So hopefully that clears that up for students.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to understand. Yeah, I answer this a lot for students. So someone is asking, are you able to just take a single science course or multiple without having to do a faculty? I will maybe answer that one. So I would say students apply to the university and they do apply to a specific program, but you're accepted to the entire university. So our university offers direct entry to all programs and faculties. The only exception to this is athletic therapy, but we won't discuss that. So once you're accepted to the university, you're able to register in classes in a variety of programs and faculties. So hopefully that is clear, that you can take classes in any area. You're not bound to just one faculty at all. Yeah. And in fact, it's encouraged. Even if, let's say, your major is in chemistry, you'll still have electives in a degree where you can take classes that have to do nothing with your major at all. They're just based out of interest. And that's where Doug ended up with that student who was studying chemistry, but also fell in love with human rights, obviously had a lot of human rights classes in that degree, and then they got a double major and decided to move forward with the other area and ended up becoming a lawyer. So there's lots of variety in a university degree, and once you're accepted, you can register in all types of classes. Okay. Would human anatomy and physiology be considered part of the general science?
That's a biology course we're talking about, like a first year biology course. We also offer, I guess, anatomy in our kinesiology program too in the second year. So I'm not sure about the general science piece that we're talking about as a program, or.
I think I would just say yes. It's a class that's within the Faculty of Science.
Yeah.
Okay, someone is asking, if I want to go into occupational therapy after my undergraduate degree, which undergraduate degree would I want to pursue?
Oh, that's a good question. Occupational therapy, and again, the fact sheet would be the best guide for that answer. But I'm thinking students who are majoring in kinesiology and athletic therapy, they would quite often end up in that style of professional program. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the link that we have in the chat with the fact sheets, if you scroll to the very bottom, that's where you see the professional programs or the pre-professional programs. You'll see occupational therapy listed there. And then just know that you can study a variety of degrees in order to meet those pre-professional, pre-occupational therapy requirements. But the most common option would be kinesiology. Why is 3-year biochemistry degree popular among students who are going to pursue medicine?
So maybe a note of caution. We have a lot of students that come into first year with the idea, and it's a good idea, of becoming medical doctors. But the reality is, the majority of those students that come into first year don't end up in that career path. So the 3-year degree, whether it's biochemistry or biology, the 3-year degree is a popular one because it does meet the objectives of a lot of students. And so what I mean by that is students often change their career path or their academic path along the way. And frankly, if a student doesn't need a 4-year degree, for example, to get a job, they will do the 3-year degree. And if they are doing a double major, or if they're doing something like education, they may not want to do a 4-year degree. So there are just a lot of options for students who are doing the 3-year degree path, for sure.
Mhm. An interesting question. What are the biggest misconceptions about the Faculty of Science?
Biggest misconceptions. I guess it depends on the style of student we're talking about, because I've had, believe it or not, I've had Indigenous students in the classroom who thought they were the only student. Who thought they were the only Indigenous student. And in reality, there was a lot of them. It's just that they don't know. It's not like they're just not walking around telling anybody who they are. And why would they? So what are biggest misconceptions? Oh, there's a lot. And I actually think one of the biggest conceptions in science in general is that science students are nerds. And they're not. Some of them are actually pretty cool. If you watch, I don't know, The Big Bang Theory, this comedy, you might have a misconception about physics students, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Science students play on our athletics teams. They're athletes and they're social people. And frankly, girls can do math.
Yay.
But I don't know why they don't end up in computer science. I mean, it's not that there's zero, there's lots, but I don't know why there isn't more.
Yeah. I would say, if I may add to a misconception, I'd say not specifically at the University of Winnipeg, but I think students getting into the Faculty of Science anywhere would think that it's a little bit more serious or intimidating, or maybe sort of like a sterile feeling in the classrooms. And I myself took science classes at the University of Winnipeg, and I really didn't feel that way. And right now, you guys are asking questions to the Dean of Science. It's a pretty important position in our university. And, him and I were joking around earlier on today, and he hopefully a takeaway that you recognized in his presentation was that he knows all of his other faculty members, but students on a first name basis, and he remembers them over the years. And that isn't always the case in all universities. And when you can come by that, it's really great to have connections. One, because it'll make you feel better as you're going through your classes, you'll feel more comfortable. But the real tangible takeaway of that is that you'll understand your material better and hopefully have more opportunities. I know there's lots of questions about employment here that we have addressed, but those connections, they do result in something positive for the student, for employment opportunities. So hopefully that's a takeaway that you've gotten today.
Absolutely. Here's my list of reference letters I have to write today, this week. These are students. So I've got 2 out of 4 done.
Yeah, that really means something actually. Okay, so sorry, there's a lot of questions to go through. Um, do you have any advice for successful first year undergrads?
How to be successful?
Mhm.
So if you're coming here from high school into first year, one piece of advice I like to give to students is get a study buddy. I mean, you can learn by yourself, that's for sure. But if you're coming into first year, if you've got a buddy in class with you, your learning suddenly becomes a lot more efficient when there's 2 or 3 or 4 of you who work together as a group. You can help each other. If one of you misses a lecture, you've got your buddy or buddies to lean on, to borrow their notes or maybe explain things. I really do encourage students to talk to each other. There's so many advantages. They sometimes speak the same language, frankly, that maybe the professor doesn't speak. Professor knows, you know, they know one level, but they don't always know the level that the students are at. So if that's one piece of advice, I would give that. Get a study buddy.
I agree. Um, are there degrees with co-op opportunities?
Oh, there are. Yep. I'd have to say there are co-op opportunities for most of our programs, frankly. But in truth, I would say the majority of our co-op students come from applied computer science, and I would say business. Those are the really popular places. Part of the problem isn't just if we have students available, but part of the problem is also making sure that there's a meaningful opportunity with companies. So we do have, and maybe this is where I should let Nadia jump in, but we do have a co-op person uh, that I know those departments tap into.
Yes, yes.
It was Lynn, but I believe Lynn moved to another position.
We
So
we do have a co-op department. So how sort of a general overview of how it would look is we offer co-ops typically after a student has studied for 1 year, and then they're automatically available for applied computer science, business, as you mentioned, business and economics. And then you can have co-op with other departments, but there isn't a current ongoing standing. So you would have to organize it a little bit more independently between the organization and the department to ensure that that connection makes sense. But outside of that, so that would be within the Faculty of Science. They're available, but you would have to pair it up a little bit more individually. Someone is also asking, will there be classes online in the spring term or will they be face-to-face? This is tough to answer at this point in time. We did go back to online classes for the winter term. We don't have an announcement yet for the spring term, but my feeling is that we are inclined to get back to in-person classes. And even when in-person classes happen, there still will be online and evening classes available, but just a limited amount compared to when we're fully online. So I'll see that there.
that's more or less what I was going to say.
Yeah, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's a perfect answer.
Okay. Okay, so what are the recent statistics for pre-vet students out of U of W who get accepted in professional schools? I have an answer, but maybe you have a little bit more details than me.
Well, why don't we both answer it? But you go right ahead, Nadia. I
Okay.
certainly don't mind.
Yeah, so pre-veterinary, of course, this is like a veterinary program would be offered by another institution. They aren't obligated to release their statistics of where their students came from, and also professional programs like that are provincially regulated. Those institutions are not allowed to give preferential treatment to a student based off of where their degree came from. It would be based off of their ability to meet the academic admission requirements, as well as the additional experience that students should have in order to make them a competitive applicant. So I don't have a full answer on that. I know that you can't be, dismissed because you graduated from U of W. They can't poo-poo your degree if it's from here or anything like that. I don't know. Do you have anything to add, Doug?
Well, what I would say about veterinary college is, in fact, one of the pictures I had on one of the students in my presentation was Anna Henderson, and she actually went to veterinary college at the University of Saskatoon, or University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. Pardon me. That's an extremely competitive program. So if a student wants to become a vet, my understanding is there's an agreement between the province of Manitoba and the province of Saskatchewan that holds or reserves a small number of seats in that program. So I want to say half a dozen, which sounds incredibly small, and it is incredibly small. Manitoba does not have a veterinary college, even though we are an agricultural province. We don't have enough students or enough demand to have a veterinary college in our province. And so that's why we have this with Saskatoon. Truthfully, there aren't a lot of veterinary colleges in Canada. I want to say 4, maybe 5.
There are very few in the country.
Very few in the country. And very competitive. I've had students tell me more competitive than medicine to get into.
Yeah, when there are fewer spaces available.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, and I don't have statistics either, other than I know personally students who've gotten into veterinary college from the U of W. My own students have. But again, few and far between, and very competitive. And I don't know anybody without a degree getting into that program.
Mm-hmm. Okay, someone is asking, what are the biggest mistakes that students make when choosing their courses for science?
Oh boy, no good answer for that. I will say this though, don't underestimate the amount of time needed. And the most successful students are the students that manage their time well. And another thing I would tell students to do is play to your strengths. So let's pretend biology isn't your strength. That's not to say you shouldn't take biology. That's just to say that you need to be aware that you need to put more time and effort into a biology course, let's say, for example. And that may come at a cost. It may come at a cost to other courses. So recognizing your strengths, organizing your time, eating properly, sleeping properly, making sure the term is 12 weeks, that you devote enough time and energy to your studies. A mistake sometimes students make is overscheduling. It's an easy mistake. We all do it, even when we're not students. But the term is 12 weeks. Put your traveling aside. Maybe put your social life on hold. It's 12 weeks plus your final exams. So think of it that way.
Mm-hmm. I would really, I would stress a lot of those things. I would say, I'm a different generation than maybe some of the students who are watching this. I don't know who's behind on the other end, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, but I really think on your first week of classes, getting an agenda, a physical agenda, and
Yes.
a pen, and then you get into your first year of your classes, and you'll learn about all of these things in orientation and stuff like that when you're accepted. But you get into all of your classes, and they'll basically give you an outline of what you're going to do in every single one of your classes and when it's due. And at the end of the first week of classes, I would sit down with that piece of paper for all of my classes and plunk it into my agenda. So I knew what every single day would look like for the rest of that term. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's better to feel a little bit overwhelmed and ready to be prepared than frantically going through it and forgetting things like that. It's hard. I personally like to just see things laid out in that type of way, rather than, of course, you'll have it in your phone, but it's different. Um, and so that's something that I would say is a really good way to stay prepared and on top of things. And yeah, find that balance. Of course, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to spend one night staying up way too late, binge watching something on Netflix, but you just have to know how to regulate yourself and then do better the next day. We're all human. I know I did that in university, but you'll find that balance. And yeah, eating healthily, sleeping healthily, it's really important so that you have that foundation.
I think students underestimate the importance of looking after themselves. So looking after their physical being, but looking after their mental health, really important. I have seen students, it's easy to see. They have a bad test and they get down. And it's totally understandable. But I think what students forget too, especially coming in first year, it's a journey. It really is. You know, you're looking at 4 and maybe 5 years to complete a degree. So if you think of it as it's not a marathon, but you can think of it that way. Yeah, it's a long road. So you have to look after yourself along the way, protect yourself.
Let's see. Someone has asked, will this presentation be posted somewhere so that we can view it for future? Maybe I'll need someone from the background to answer that for me.
Gosh, I hope I didn't say anything wrong.
Yes, it will be. These will all be posted up on the university's YouTube and probably up on the open house webpage as well, which is just uwinnipeg.ca/open house. So you can check this presentation out. And if you are not able to make it to some of the other webinars, they'll all be available for prospective students to view.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm going to go to the kinesiology one at some point.
Okay. This is, we've had a lot of questions about medicine, but this is a very specific one. If a student plans to enter medicine and become a doctor, do they need any physics, or is that simply recommended? Would you recommend physics, or would students be fine without it trying to get into medicine?
The problem with physics, okay, so physics is a component on the MCAT exam. So I can't imagine trying to write that exam without physics. So my short answer is I would recommend everybody take physics, mostly because it's just interesting. It's like applied math to explain our world. So having said that, sometimes as a strategy for students who are serious about the MCAT exam, but may not be interested in becoming a physics major, they sometimes wait until their 3rd or their 4th year to take first year physics, which is not out of bounds, in order to have that knowledge fresh in their minds when they write an MCAT exam. So does that help?
I think so. Lots of students are really pressed about the physics issue. And I'd really say it will be tough, but a lot of what you'll do in university will be tough. And I'm not sure how much sense it makes to put in all the work that you'll put, time and energy and money that you'll put into university, and then find out down the line that you would have been better prepared if you had taken that class. It makes sense to just do what's required when's needed and then go for it and push to get into medicine.
So our physics for non-physics majors is taught by a fellow named Ian Burley, and I actually highlighted him on one of my slides. He's an award-winning instructor, just an amazing teacher. So for students who are thinking of science but not taking physics as a major, I would definitely migrate to his classes. He's just outstanding.
That's great. I'm just answering some questions by typing them here, but maybe I'll just go ahead and put it on live. So someone is asking, are there good job opportunities in labs and other biochemistry related jobs, even for those who have only the 4-year BSc?
Absolutely. National Microbiology Lab was interested in hiring students during the pandemic, and certainly now even after the pandemic. So are there job opportunities? Absolutely. So the BSc is a good degree to have. And it does open doors. Students don't need to have master's degrees and PhDs to have interesting career paths in labs, in certified labs, in the city, in the province. And of course, job opportunities open up even more for students who are willing to travel outside the province, let's say, for example. We do have a pharmaceutical industry in our province, in Steinbach, and even in the city itself.
Good. Someone's asked, do you need to have grade 12 physics in order to do your first year physics at the university?
I want to say yes, but that would be a prerequisite that would show up in the physics course. So I'm thinking of the physics 1300.
Yeah, I believe you do. There is a physics class that students can get into without having physics in their grade 12 year, I believe. But it's not all of them. So I would really strongly encourage students to take physics in their grade 12 year of high school if they think if there's any chance at all that they would need it in university for whatever their path is. Okay, what marks do students typically get in first year in chemistry and biology? Is chemistry generally harder than biology?
I don't think so. Truthfully, these are really impossible to answer questions. And again, it has to do with students' strengths and also background of students. So students who have a strong background in sciences in high school, they'll do well in any of our science courses. And I would also argue that students that do well in high school do well at the University of Winnipeg. What do marks look like? Well, the average grade on the first term test in the fall of first year in a chemistry course would probably have an average of about 60%. What does the average grade for chemistry look like? Probably a C plus B would be a good average grade for the classroom. But in that sort of number, if you will, are hundreds of students. And in the hundreds of students, there's going to be many A pluses. And every year there's going to be students who get close to 100% as a grade in any of these courses, whether it's physics, chemistry, or biology. Some students definitely find chemistry harder than biology. I think I can say why. There's different learning skills required for different styles of science course, whether we're talking about environmental studies, whether we're talking about anthropology, biology, chemistry, math and stats. A lot of science courses can be divided up into, and it's not exclusive, but you have problem-solving courses like math and stats, and you have, I would say, maybe verbal reasoning courses or courses where you are taking in a lot of information. And so biology would be that style of course where many of the concepts you learn, you're taking in large volumes of information. You have to organize it and understand the concepts. But that's a different style of course than, say, chemistry, where you do have concepts, but you're also learning problem solving. And you're also relying on algebra, maybe a little bit of calculus, but not much. perhaps in second year. But those problem-solving style courses, many students do find them more challenging than your verbal reasoning style courses. So it doesn't really have to do with the course itself. It's a different course. So in many ways, it's apples and oranges. So I don't know if I'm answering that well or not, but that's where you see differences. So the students whose strengths are memorizing facts, they may struggle with problem solving, or problem solvers may struggle with memorizing large volumes of information that you might see in an anatomy course or a genetics course.
Yeah, and I noticed that the student was specifically asking about marks in first year. I really would say do not base your strength as a student, your self-esteem, or anything off of your first year university marks. Some people will come in soaring, but lots of students will see a bit of a drop from their high school marks to their university marks, because it's a whole different world. The university will be more challenging than high school. It's also time management that you'll need to really, that was my biggest thing that I needed to learn when I got to university, really learning how to manage my time, because your teachers aren't after you, they're professors. It's a very different dynamic. And a lot of the onus is on yourself. So if your marks drop in your first year of university, don't think anything badly or good about it, because it can happen and you'll figure it out after that point in time. Students can get much stronger as their years go on, even though fourth year courses, third year courses are more challenging than your first year courses. Lots of students do perform better in them because they figured out this whole university world a little bit better. The last question we have here is, besides small class sizes and professor availability, what are the other advantages of studying science at U of W compared to other institutions?
Compared to other institutions, we're just nicer, we're friendlier. What we have, though, are world-class facilities, and we have world-class people, and other schools will say that too. So what makes us special? I think we're a really nice community here. I think students that do find their way here do very well. I wouldn't underestimate the importance of getting to know people. Another word for that would be networking. And what we have here are networking opportunities for students. We're small, we can pivot very quickly, so we can adjust, we can adapt. Students that sometimes do get into trouble or do have challenges, again, because we can adapt and we're small, we can pivot very quickly and help people. Our teaching labs, particularly in chemistry and biology here in the Richardson building, it's a relatively new building. They're simply fantastic. It's like this entire building that I'm working in right now is just an amazing facility. It's an amazing design in terms of being eco-friendly. But the opportunities for students to get hands-on. So students who come in here, first year, second year, third year, when they take undergraduate labs, they get hands-on opportunities. So they're not in a class sharing one piece of equipment with 50 other students. They could be one-on-one with a piece of equipment, with a sophisticated instrument like an atomic spectrometer. And so again, ample opportunities. I also like, what I really like about professors here, and we see this in all of the departments, that sort of camaraderie that develops with students and professors. A lot of them, when they find themselves working together in the field, they really are like teammates. You know, there's a real camaraderie and a real dependence on each other. Kind of like everybody's in the same boat together, rowing together. And that's I wouldn't underestimate the importance of that. It's a really conducive atmosphere for learning. I find the University of Winnipeg quite welcoming. I personally find it safe. I've had no issues with safety. although I can understand downtown in the evening, maybe not the most popular place to be, but the vast majority of our classes are during the day. I don't know if I've said it. Am I missing anything, Nadia?
No, I think that's, that echoes the experience that I had when I was at the university. That's, my student perspective. I took science classes and I felt certainly welcomed on campus and in my classes. And I really will say, every institution in Manitoba and in Canada wants to do their best for their students. And everyone will have strengths and weaknesses. But I will say, because of the small class size, it's sort of this, you hear it a lot, I'm sure. You hear us say it a lot, but when you have the ability, like that small class size and small intimate student services, if you, as Doug has mentioned, if you run into any issues, you have people who will advocate for you on campus, and that really does matter, because things happen. And so it's that every institution wants to do right by their students, but sometimes you have more of a capacity to do so when you have a smaller relationship or a smaller workload, or sometimes I spend a really long time with students on the phone to help them understand what they're confused about, because I have the time to do that, because I only had a certain amount of inquiries by day. So these types of things can just help you feel like you've gotten the attention that you deserve. Yeah, that's what I would say. We have a few more questions rolling in. Some of them have been repeated, but there's students who are asking, very specific questions. Is it typical to see a student with marks around 70% area during high school end up with much better marks when they reach university? I'd say, again, there's no way to answer something in such a concrete way, because every single student is different. So you'll do how you will do. If you prepare and you study and you review your material, you'll do well. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. What I've seen, and I've seen this even as a student myself, and professors will tell you this too. Students, there are numerous examples, hundreds probably, students that come into first year university, not sure what they want to do, never had a huge interest in academics, maybe a C average in high school, I don't know. But then enter a program and then suddenly get turned on, like a switch almost, but get turned on to a topic or an area. And then once they're turned on, it's like magic, and the sky's the limit, and the students do extremely well. And even some professors will admit they weren't the best student in high school, but when they got into university, I wouldn't say it's a different playing field. Well, it is a different playing field. You're among people with common interests. And so I would say it's really important for all of our students academically to pursue their interest, their academic interest. If a student has an interest in theater, but mom and dad want them to be medical doctors, that's going to be a challenge. I always think it's important for students to follow their interest, because they'll do well if they do that and play to their strengths.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just seeing more questions.
It's hard to talk and read at the same time, right?
Yes, yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
I'm practicing.
You're like a true multitasker here.
I'm trying. Would it be beneficial to take first 2 general years at another college and then come here, or should one come for all 3 or 4 years? I do have an answer.
Yeah, I bet it's the same as mine. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, So students are able to transfer to the University of Winnipeg, but you do have to go through the whole application process, pay the application fee, and then submit your transcripts. And at that point in time, they're reviewed, and there's no way to know if any of your classes will be transferred or transferable. So you can certainly begin at another institution, but there's just no guarantee that any of your classes will come here, and you could have to repeat them all upon beginning at the university. So it certainly would be safer to just begin and end at one institution.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing. Huge advantages to of course doing all your years of education in one facility.
Yeah. We have a student who's majorly jumping the gun. When is student orientation for new students entering the upcoming fall term? I love how keen you are. That will be happening the very last week of August, likely. No dates are set, but if you're an accepted student, you'll receive a lot of information about it. You'll probably meet with someone like myself later on in the year to learn about how to register in classes. So there's a lot of steps in between now and then. But if you're beginning in fall term, then you don't have to worry about that until very end of August or beginning of September.
I wish we really did have open house, Nadia. Our open house program is really good.
Yeah.
We often have tours, and students can go around in groups to have a look at the place. I wonder if we should try doing that at the end of summer.
Yeah.
Maybe organize tours. Come on in.
Who knows? Yeah. So
I shouldn't jump the gun either, in case we're still struggling with this pandemic, but
yeah, I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Very last thing, I'll say some of the questions that are rolling in now, I'll probably end it here. Some of the questions that are rolling in now, they'll be better to be addressed in the presentation that's happening Thursday, February 24th at 6 p.m. So we'll talk a little bit more about general information about the university, what you need for admission requirements to apply to the university, and what the timeline of this year looks like. And so some of the questions about students are asking right now about when you register in classes, things like that, just know that we'll cover that in that presentation. And right now, all you need to know is that you do not select your individual university classes on the application. You're simply just going on, the application is quite straightforward. Name, high school, what you're interested in, and know that whatever you select on the application for what you're interested in can change. You're not bound by anything that you put there. So things are quite flexible, and that's the best thing for students to take away.
Perfect.
Yes. And yes, I see Tatiana's added a few things. We do have the virtual campus tour. I know we can't have everyone in the building right now, but you can check out what that looks like a little bit online. And then when we're able to return to in-person, you'll get all of the tours and all of the in-person attention that you're looking for. A few minutes ago, I put in the view book in there. Again, all of that information will be covered in my presentation and recruitment on how to apply to the university. But if you're looking for information about the university and all of the programs, it's in there. The tuition amounts are listed on page 24. The admission requirements are listed on page 16 if you're in province, page 17 if you're out of province. And the fact sheets really are the best resource for students to go through, look at what a sample first year looks like, what sample careers you can get from every single major, and what degrees are available.
Agreed.
Great. Doug,
yeah, it's just a good quick source.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and everyone who stayed. I know we went over time, so I appreciate everyone joining to learn a little bit more about the Faculty of Science. And thank you for all of your questions. I can tell how curious and intrigued you all are, and that really makes a difference for Doug and myself. We really love to interact with students. Hopefully it will be in person soon.
Oh, yes, it will be.
Yeah, yes. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you, Doug.
I'm looking at some of these Q&As.
Yeah.